This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Ben Turney, who is the CEO of Kavango Resources, joins me today. First off, Ben, congratulations on the new appointment as CEO. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Tired. People have been asking me, what are you going to do to celebrate? And I said, I'm going to have a bloody nap. I don't think most people understand quite how much work's involved with a role like this. So it's certainly fun, but there's a lot to do.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do at Kavango. But it's pretty clear to me that you are very bullish on Kavango and like what you see. That comes across in the interviews that you do and the media that you do. I wonder if I can ask you, what has been the journey been like for you, both from a personal point of view, being involved in the stock markets, and then from first getting involved in Kavango to now being the main man?
Well, it's quite a long story. Obviously, I've been active in the market now for about 12 years. I've done a number of different things. I've been a market commentator. I was an investigative writer for a few years. I was editor of Share Profits, as quite a few people know. Then got quite heavily involved in shareholder activism, won a few campaigns, lost a few campaigns. But throughout all of this, I've always been a shareholder. I was very motivated to try and make the market better. A lot of what I saw early on, sort of when I first lost my money, as most people do in this space, you go through a rite of passage of going down, maybe not quite to zero. I haven't quite been zeroed in this market. I've been pretty fortunate. I've managed to stay alive at the very least and keep on going. But a lot of people do tend to drop by the wayside. The churn rate in this market is very high. And what I learned early on was there was a lot of behavior that I saw in this market that frankly disgusted me. And I was quite idealistic sort of 7-8 years ago and thought, we could change the world. The world has subsequently beaten that out of me quite soundly. But today, I stick to my principles. I always have done. I'm the sort of person who does what he says. And, I like to, be able to look at myself in the mirror at the end of the day and know that I've really done my best. And I've been through some very hard times in this market. I've suffered some pretty big defeats 18 months ago. In particular, I had a very heavy one, which, was landed on me. My own fault. I got involved with a company that, looking back in hindsight, the warning signs were all there, but, sort of emotion took over and I'd invested into the people and, I made a big mistake. But the culmination of all of this experience is that throughout that, I've always been a very entrepreneurial person. I set my first business up when I was at university. I've only ever really worked for myself. I'm not really an employable sort of person, which is ironic now, obviously, that I'm CEO of a publicly listed company. But what I bring to Kavango is a lot of experience in the market, hard-earned experience, but also an entrepreneurial zeal. I'm very passionate about what I do. I have very high standards, which I expect of myself, and also what I expect of the people around me. And so far, we've introduced that into Kavango. It's not always been easy for everybody, but I'm delighted to say we're all stepping up to the challenge. And the share price is obviously great. We're in pretty difficult market conditions, but we are performing very well. But that share price performance, what that really reflects is the fantastic progress that we're making behind the scenes, both developing this business and sort of building on what was already there, but gearing ourselves up for now what is an incredibly exciting period coming up.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. You are right. It is a bit of a challenging time in the markets, possibly because of the summer lull. But one thing I picked up there, your history as a private investor, taking those hard early lessons of losing money, that really does align you with most of the private investing world. So it's great that you can bring that past experience into the role now you've got at Kavango.
I put a tweet out, Mark, recently about exactly this. And the thing is that the simple truth is that as a director of a company, my interests will never be wholly aligned with shareholders. I have to represent the company. I have to make decisions on behalf of the company. So as much as possible, yes, absolutely, I do want to align myself with shareholders. I've got a lot of skin in the game. I put quite a lot of money into Kavango personally. And of course, all the time that I've sunk in as well. That's actually my biggest cost is how much time this business has taken. But yeah, as much as possible, we are a business that is aligned with shareholders. But as always, that does come with the caveat that we will never be fully aligned with you. Your decisions as private investors compared to ours as directors, there will always be a bit of a mismatch. But the fact that we own as much stock as we do among the board, it's It's around about 23, 24%, I think, at the moment. I think, yeah, we do have positive alignment, and I'm looking forward to what we can do over the coming years.
Okay. Well, on that, looking forward, you've got some presentation and some slides you'd like to show us on some of the activities that are going on in Kavango. So over to you. Let's show me what you've got, and we'll see what questions come up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this opportunity, because normally I have sort of a very fixed time span and you have to sort of rush the presentation out. So it'd be good today to just take it at a bit more of a leisurely pace, and any questions that you have, do stop. I've got up on screen, obviously, the usual disclaimer. Obviously, people have to be mindful of the risk that they're taking with buying into a stock like ours. I often say that, be under no illusions, an investment in Kavango is a gamble, but it's hopefully a gamble that offers quite a lot of, significant and genuine upside. That blue sky potential that a lot of what we're all looking for, what we're all hoping to buy into, that does exist within Kavango, and we're doing everything we can to deliver that. So the first slide I brought up today, this is the AC corridor in the Kalahari Suture Zone. Now, obviously, Mark, I know that your viewers are largely aware of the Kavango story, so I won't give a lot of the background to the projects. I mean, we've done that in other media we've released. So I think today what we'll do is we'll just go straight into the meat of this, about what it is that's really exciting us about the results that we're getting through from the field. Now, this slide is particularly exciting for us because Hilary Gumbo, who's our chief geophysicist and one of the co-founders of Kavango, he's recently developed a new model where he believes he's been able to separate the Karoo Age gabbros, which are the volcanic systems from about 160 to 180 million years ago, from the Proterozoic gabbros, which are much deeper and are about 1.1 billion years old. Now, during the Proterozoic age, the volcanic systems were much more active. And what we can see on this map here, the green represents the Proterozoic gabbro. So the magma that came to surface was in much more volume, and it's spread over a much, much larger area than happened during the Karoo Age gabbros, the Karoo Age volcanic system, which is obviously a much younger system, which we believe, according to Hilary's interpretation of airborne data, is this blue corridor that we're looking at on a northeast-southwest trajectory. Now, one of the big challenges there's been historically when using airborne data to penetrate through the Kalahari cover, which is give or take around about 70 meters of sands, this has always been the biggest challenge in unlocking the geology of Botswana, because the Kalahari cover obscures pretty much most of the region's geology from eyesight. This is why it was missed historically, and this is why, in many ways, a lot of Botswana still represents virgin ground for major world-class minerals discoveries. Now, it's only been in recent years that remote sensing technology has advanced sufficiently, and also the software capability to interpret the data, to create the sort of model that we're looking at here, where we're able to distinguish between different types of underlying subsurface bodies. Now, what's particularly exciting about this is we can see on the map target areas A and C. Now, we've announced these previously, and we've been running what are known as time domain electromagnetic surveys, which is a ground-based form of subsurface surveying using a 1 kilometre square loop through which a powerful electric current is passed, which charges the Earth's crust down to a depth of about 700 or 800 metres. And then signals are returned to surface, and a receiver is walked up and down 3 kilometre lines, picking up that signal and obviously developing a model, of creating data that's used to develop a model of what's then underneath. Now, it's through these Tdem surveys that we've been able to identify our drill targets. Now, the targets on their own are very exciting. We're about to talk a bit about some of the properties of those targets in a minute. But what we think is really significant now with the latest interpretation of the data is that we believe that there is a corridor that exists between target area A and target area C, with a number of what we think are feeder zones for the Karoo Age gabbros. Now, the reason those feeders are so significant is because obviously as the magma passed up through the Proterozoic gabbros, up through the surface, it encountered at some point on its journey sulfur. Now, we believe that sulfur was in the regional sedimentary coal rocks, and it was the coal that melted with the magma to form this magmatic sulfide liquids, where basically what happened was the sulfur within the coal interacted with the metallic elements, so the nickel, the copper, the platinum group elements, to create this much heavier immiscible liquid that would have sunk to the bottom of the magma flows. So if you imagine balsamic vinegar in olive oil, and the balsamic vinegar sinks to the bottom, well, it's a very similar process, albeit on a much, much larger scale. And what we believe we could be looking at is potentially, and I've got to emphasize the potentially here, because until we've drilled this and we've got core data to confirm the theory, but the theory at this point is that we're looking at a corridor, we hope a mineralized corridor, with a number of these very important feeder zones with what look like two very attractive drill targets for us to go out and test. Now, if we are able to prove up this theory with the drill bit, you can simply see on this map alone just how much potential there is within this area for further exploration.
And will you find out very quickly once the drills are turning if you're in the right place?
Yeah, well, I mean, it all depends on what we pull to surface. I mean, the first challenge with the drills is to get to the bottom of the keels. So we're drilling, give or take, about 500-metre holes. So that's an engineering challenge in its own right. We'd be the first firm ever to achieve this in the Kalahari Suture Zone. So our first priority is to make sure we get to the bottom. Once we've then got the drill core up, obviously we'll then have to send it off for assay testing to South Africa. We will do some on-site testing. So we do have our own XRF machine that we've bought. But as people, certainly shareholders in Kavango, will be aware, XRF analysis can be a little unreliable. So whether or not we'll report the XRF results, I don't know. It really will depend. I mean, we'll certainly analyse it using the XRF, but the really sort of reliable data will come out of the assay labs. And what we're really keen to do at this point is make absolutely certain that whatever we report to the market is completely accurate. The labs are down in South Africa, so obviously we'd need to ship the core from Botswana to South Africa. That should be fine in normal circumstances, but again, with what's happening with Corona, I mean, who knows? But we'll certainly publish the full final results from the assay labs in South Africa.
Okay. But you've got the theory, and now it's putting it into practice and seeing if it proves to be correct.
Yeah, it is, but it's not a one-shot wonder. So, for example, in oil exploration, if you drill an exploration well and it comes up as what people call a duster, that can be the end of that project. For us, the KSZ, our area within it covers 7,500 square kilometres. So these targets that we're feeling very confident about now, but obviously until we get the core data, we won't know. But even if those don't return the exact results that we're hoping for, the data that we'll be able to get, that certainly would be able to augment future exploration. But as things stand today, the targets themselves look very, very attractive. And particularly this mineralized corridor that we're looking at here is a very, very exciting prospect. Okay,
good. Okay, excellent.
So what I've got here is, this is one of my favorite slides at the moment. I'm using it in every presentation I give. It illustrates the historic issues or the historic challenges that there were using older airborne technology. So what you're looking at here is a slice from an airborne survey flown over target area A that led to a drill decision by a major Canadian firm in the 1980s. Now, what the Canadians were looking at here is they thought this mineralized corridor, so this is part of the AC corridor that we're looking at, and they identified this quite tightly defined circular-looking target, which they put two holes into. Now, one of these holes is CKP8, which our shareholders will know is the deepest hole that's ever been drilled in the KSZ. It went down to about, I think, 460 meters. And we've used core or data from the core of CKP8 has been used by Dr. David Holwell in his mineral systems review, which has been very valuable to us. But they didn't get to the bottom of the gabbro, and they gave up because they got down to this depth, hadn't found anything of interest. There's a rumor that the hole was sabotaged. Obviously, I can't verify that, but for whatever reason, they didn't go to the bottom of the gabbro and get core data from the bottom. When they abandoned this hole, they then ignored this target here. Now, the reason that that's significant for us, Mark, is that what we're looking at here are the results of the first two Tdem surveys that we ran in target area A. So the first survey we put over the two holes that were drilled, this is CKP8 that you can see here, because we wanted to understand a bit more about what led to the Canadians' original drill decision. We wanted to understand, why did they pick this target? And then more importantly, why didn't this target meet their expectations? And we think we have the answer for that using our modern methods for analysis. Because what we're looking at on this green shape here, this is the Proterozoic gabbro. So this is that much older, volcanic system, about 1.1 billion years old, that is much, much deeper in the Earth's surface. And as you can clearly see, the Proterozoic gabbro is pushing to surface. So there's like an intrusive body, which doesn't obviously make its way to surface, but it almost identically aligns with the magnetic reading for this target. So when you were looking at this fairly sort of rudimentary view 35 years ago, it's no wonder that the geophysicists then picked this as a drill target, because with their view, it looked like an excellent target. What they didn't know, and they had no way of knowing at this time, was how deep it was. And what they'd actually picked up on was this Proterozoic gabbro, which could well be prospective for metals and minerals, but because it's so deep, it's realistically, outside of our reach with current technology. In the future, maybe it will become a target in its own right. But for now, looking at the shallower Karoo, that's our target horizon. So we put then the second survey over this target here, this magnetic body, because it looked very interesting. It seemed like a viable target, and according to Hillary's model of the region, it was sitting right above a keel, so one of these characteristic keel shapes that I haven't described in this presentation, but this is in plenty of our literature that's out there. And we hit a target straight away. So this is the sort of the overall footprint, the conductive footprint from the target, and I'll take us on to the next slide. So this is A2, which we're now planning on drilling. Now, A2 is at least 1 kilometre in strike. Spectral Geophysics, who are our partner in Botswana with the Tdem Surveys, they're really excited about this project, this target in particular. It's sitting just outside of the Karoo gabbro. So what we're seeing on this model, this interpretation, is underneath you have the Proterozoic gabbro, which is much older. The lighter green is the Karoo age gabbro, we believe. This is the conductive signal that our target body, which is in the center of this red, is giving off, as picked up by the Tdem surveys. But what's very interesting about this target is it sits just outside the gabbro. Now, that could be quite encouraging, because if you imagine when these metallic bodies formed sort of 150, 160 million years ago, they obviously were quite tightly compact, and effectively it's like a metallic body underground. Now, as tectonic forces within the Earth's surface pushed and pulled against each other, what can often happen with these magmatic sulfide bodies is they can get squeezed out of the gabbro from where they originally were formed. So think about when you squeeze on a tube of toothpaste and sort of a line of toothpaste comes out. In geological terms, it can be a very similar process. So part of the exploration hypothesis was to look for targets that sit just outside of the gabbro, as well as those that sit right within it. And target A2 conforms to that almost precisely. Now, what's really significant, and we think is really significant about target A2, is this 3,000 Siemens conductance reading. A little later on, I'm going to take you to a table that I've recently released on Twitter to talk you through that 3,000 conductance reading, but just bear that in mind for the moment. So if we then move on, A2, one of the great things about A2 is its shape as well. So we've had comments from people who really do know what they're talking about in this. I've got to be a bit careful about what I say here. But they like the way that this looks. The shape of it is very encouraging, according to the geophysical model that we've created. But again, until we've tested this with drilling, which we're going to do a little later this summer, and we've got core data from both the bottom of the keel and from through the target itself and through the other side of the target, obviously we won't know. But so far, from a modelling perspective, this target really is looking great, and it's drill ready, which is why we are about to mobilise our drill rig into the field.
Okay, so the drills will effectively go straight through the red target.
Pretty much. So Spectral Geophysics, they actually recommended two holes, one from the west, one from the east. It's possible we will still drill two on it. I mean, we're not ruling it out at this stage. We've obviously got to be mindful of our budgets, but at this point, we're going to drill one hole through on an orientation of 80 degrees. That will penetrate through this body. Obviously, we'll bring the core data up from that. And what we'll then immediately do as soon as the hole has been drilled is deploy Spectral Geophysics downhole probe, and we'll conduct an EM survey from the target depth as well. So we're expecting to get some very valuable data out of that. And actually, when you asked me earlier on about sort of results that we can expect to see, that's actually what I should have mentioned at that time. So It will obviously take a little while before we get the assay results from the drill core, but we're expecting the results from the downhole probe. I mean, that should be within a matter of a couple of weeks of completion of the hole.
Okay. And if you're getting core, it's obviously a diamond drill rig that's being used here. Do you have any idea on timescales of how long you expect the drill to be turning for?
So we're thinking it's on both targets. So if I just take us back up to this slide on the corridor. So we've got target C1 and target A2 down here. The drill camp is pretty much going to be bang in the middle of the two. We're going to mobilise to A2 first, just simply that was our plan, and then take the drill rig up the road. I mean, it's a dirt track that our guys are creating at the moment. So up the track to C1. We think it'll probably take about 5 to 6 weeks from the point that the drill rig is on site. The camp is currently being prepared, and I think we're looking to mobilise hopefully this weekend.
Okay, good, exciting times.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I can't wait. I mean, obviously, as soon as that drill bit starts turning, it's a very exciting test for all of us and all the work that's gone into getting us up to this point. Now, this obviously is target C1, which possibly we're more excited about. Now, C1, as I said, it's 11 kilometres away from A2. It's on this geological corridor, or what we believe is this geological corridor. If we can prove that up, then that will obviously be transformational for the business. It gives off a slightly lower Siemens reading, so it's 2,500 compared to the 3,000 on A2. But what's very interesting about this target is its position and its shape. So it's slightly deeper than A2. It occurs right at the bottom of the gabbro. So what you're looking at here on this red, this is pretty much the bottom of the gabbro, and we'll see a better slice or a better view of it in a moment. But what again you can see is you have the Proterozoic gabbros, which are much deeper. We believe that the Proterozoic conduits acted as the channel for the Karoo Age magma to make its way through to the surface. I mean, that's a theory at this point. If it turns out we're correct about that, that will be significant. It's one of the things we're looking to test. And of course, the lighter green at the top is the Karoo Age gabbro. Now, if we go on to the next slide, there's a few things to talk about here. First of all, is the shape of the body. Now, this one is much larger than A2. It's also spread out over a much larger area and spread out over what looks like the keel. So, got to be a bit careful not to oversimplify things here. But if you go back to that analogy I used earlier on of the balsamic vinegar at the bottom of olive oil. So if you imagine the shape of whatever the olive oil is in, whatever container it is in, obviously the balsamic vinegar as it sinks to the bottom will mirror, or what you would expect would obviously match the shape of whatever the container that's holding the olive oil. In very simplistic terms, we're hoping and expecting something similar within the KSZ. So what you can see here is, I mean, maybe to the untrained eye, you can't see it so much, but you have one of these very characteristic keel shapes, according to our model of the Karoo gabbro, with the conductive target lying right at the bottom of this keel. Obviously, how significant that is, we don't know yet. We're obviously very excited about this as a drill target, but this for us, this drilling this target in particular, this is gonna we expect tell us a lot about the region's potential. Now, what you can also see on this slide are a number of other of these keel shapes. What we should really do is we should add a key to this to give you an idea of the depth and the size of these things. I'm not sure quite how easy it is to see just on this flat image. So that's certainly something we'll look to improve in future to sort of illustrate the point better. But the overall point here is that this Tdem survey that we ran over C1, this picked up this one target. If drilling identifies and confirms primary sulfides, even if we hit mineralization, which obviously would be the dream, then what this image is showing you is that there are plenty of other exploration targets for us to go and look at initially with Tdem surveys and then obviously with future drilling. But at this stage, we just need to get the first core data.
Okay. Good.
Now, this is the really exciting bit. So Jeremy Brett is one of the consultants that we've used to help augment our geophysics exploration strategy. He's based over in Canada. He's worked in Botswana. He's very experienced in Botswana. He's worked on the Copper Belt. He actually worked historically in the KSZ. So when I made contact with Jeremy through one of my contacts back in February, he was very happy to get our call because he'd been watching Kavango as it happened since Kavango formed. it's a project that interests him anyway. So one of the things I asked Jeremy to do for us recently, because we've got a number of questions from shareholders, was to provide a table for us giving sort of a range of estimates of subsurface bodies and the type of conductance that they give off. Now, what you can see here very, very clearly is that a Siemens reading, so Siemens, as you can see on the left-hand side, and this is the conductivity, a Siemens reading of 2,500 to 3,000, which our two targets both have, that puts us up, in terms of expectation, the lower end of massive sulfides. So whether we find sort of economic discoveries at this point doesn't matter so much, because obviously what we're doing this year is proving up the concept. If we can find massive sulfides at the bottom of these keels, then it's game on for the whole of the KSZ, because we've then at that point proven the theory. And the fact that both of our targets are giving off, very, very, they're strong conductors. They're giving off a very clear indication that these are massive sulfides that we're looking at. This is why we're so excited. So, of course, there are no guarantees. We've done everything we can to rule out other subsurface bodies. So burnt coal, for example, is one of the possible concerns, because obviously as the magma passed up through these conduits and interacted with the local magma, it actually burned the coal to melt it into the magmatic mix. So what we think we found so far, it does all look very encouraging, and based on, this is sort of widely known information about sort of the kind of readings that other subsurface bodies give. We look like we're at the lower end of massive sulfide. So this is very encouraging. I mean, obviously it'd be great if we were higher up the scale, and we're looking at, as Jeremy calls it, real barn burners of targets. So we haven't quite got those yet, but if we can prove the concept, then it be up to us to go out there and deploy more of these Tdem surveys to identify more targets. So, for example, in these other keels that we're looking at in target area C, we have other keels in A and B that we're also looking at. And those are just like the three areas that we've really focused our energies on over recent years. We've still got the whole of the rest of the KSZ to go for. So the potential here really is enormous.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for explaining that, because I did see you put that out on Twitter, and initial glance at it looks very complicated, but as you've explained it there, that's very straightforward and also very promising. So yeah, thank you for explaining that. So yeah, go on, Ben.
Just before we move on, yeah, I mean, look, it does look pretty complicated because it's a pretty thorough piece of work. I mean, he's obviously put up all the different types of bodies that that we could think of, and with an idea of the range of their conductance. And it's I mean, the key thing to look at here is, I mean, maybe we should have highlighted it, but I think it is fairly self-explanatory sort of now that I've explained it. The fact that we're in this area and we think we've ruled out all of these, not proven yet, but it does look very encouraging at this stage.
Good to hear. Good.
So should we go on to the copper belt?
Yeah, the next project in Kavango's portfolio. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is why it's all go at the moment. I mean, we do have three genuinely world-class projects on our hands. I mean, we've got the potential for huge mineral discoveries. I mean, obviously all this needs to be tested with the drill bit. So this is the latest map from the Power Metals JV, the South Guernsey project. This is PL36, which is the northern of the two licenses. And again, I put this map out on Twitter, but I can sort of talk you through it a bit today. What's got us really excited is this orange area here, which is the Marula target. Now, the Marula target we really first identified with soil sampling line that we ran up in the northeast of it, that we thought was connected to another body. What caught our attention was when we ran soil sampling lines and when we completed analysis of the airborne data, we found this concentration in the southwest of quite strong copper readings. Now, the reason that the copper readings at surface are significant is that copper is a much less mobile element in the earth soils. So typically what's happened in the KCB previously is that companies have looked for zinc, which is a much more mobile element. That's known as a pathfinder element. So you look for concentrations of zinc at surface and then use that to determine drill targets, hopefully to find copper silver mineralization. In our case, we've identified quite strong readings of copper at surface. And what really caught our attention was that this first line that we ran up in the northeast appeared to run on the same geological trend as these lines in the southwest. Now, what we've done since is we put in these 4 lines of soil geochem with a view to testing to see whether or not this is a continuous strike. Now, as you can see from the scale here, This is 12 kilometres long and open in both directions. And what we can see so far is that the connection between these two bodies does look pretty clear, and we think we are looking at a 12-kilometre long target. Now, we have more infill soil geochem that we're planning sort of within this area, because what we're looking for now is that now we believe we've identified the entire target length is for drill targets. So we're currently going through the application process for an environmental management plan. That should be with us hopefully in July. In Botswana, you have to have an EMP awarded to you by the authorities before you can drill. But what the EMP process has given us a bit of time to do is to decide on our drill targets. So what our guys are now working on, pretty much night and day at the moment in this area, is looking for specific areas where we'll site drill collars. And we also, slightly to the north, have what was the original exploration target, which is over this fold nose formation, which I'm highlighting using my cursor. This was why we originally applied for these licenses, was because this particular geological formation is prospective and is associated with a number of other discoveries in the Kalahari Copper Belt. The airborne surveys, the data that came back was pretty much exactly aligned with what we hoped for, and also much more encouraging than that was the copper readings that we got from the soil sampling that we ran over this target. So Acacia is a fantastic target in its own right, but the sheer scale of Marula, I mean, that's something that has actually taken us a bit by surprise. Now, with all of this, we know that there's copper there because we can prove it at surface. So we know that we're looking at a copper mineral, pair of copper mineralized systems. What we don't know yet is whether or not that copper is economic. So we obviously need to see the bulk and the grade. And the only way we can test that is with drilling. So both sets of targets are about 120 to 200 meters. But what we haven't released yet is this map that's currently being developed. So this is all in the public domain. These zinc readings are, I don't know if I can say off the chart, but these zinc readings are incredibly encouraging. So earlier on when I mentioned that zinc's used as a pathfinder element, so what you're looking at here would be the sort of more traditional method for identifying potential deposits in the copper belt. And we've got consistent readings of over 95 parts per million. So the concentration of zinc over these targets, so that we're getting very excited about. As you can see, this map is a work in progress, so it's not quite at the standard as this one is. So our guys are working on it at the moment. We will put this out into the public domain. All of this data is in the public domain, so we've described all of this in RNSs. So this isn't sort of new information, it's just a visual representation of what we've previously announced. But these zinc readings are very, very encouraging.
Okay. Yeah, well, I can clearly see there, you can see where the purple is, that's the higher level there, isn't it? And so you've got two targets, Acacia and Maruli, that you're going to be drilling fairly soon, as soon as you've got the environmental permit.
Yeah, well, we also have Baobab and Elephant as well. So I think you can see, so if you imagine sort of Baobab is sort of off the screen down to the left, and Baobab is off the screen down to the right. So we actually have 4 big targets and then 3 secondary targets in this area. But our primary focus, we've obviously got limited resource. We have to decide sort of, where to focus our efforts. But the fact that these targets are looking as good as they are, that's why they sort of justify, such intense exploration attention at this stage.
Okay. And you're hoping to be drilling in July, all being well?
Oh, well, I don't know about July, because what we're thinking about is the rig that we're using in the KSZ, even though it's a diamond rig, we're thinking about then mobilising that if the drill contractor is still available, because they do work for major companies, and Botswana, which is sort of big in sort of Botswana diamond exploration. So assuming that they're available, our hope is to be able to mobilise that rig up to the KCB as soon as we finished in the KSZ. So we're hoping it will be in August. That's our goal.
Okay. Well, good. Have you got any more to show us, or?
No, not today.
Okay.
There's quite a lot for us to go over. I mean, is there anything you'd like to ask at this stage?
Not particularly. I think we're at a very exciting stage in the company. You've got your A2 and your C1 target there at the KSZ. And you've got the models you've got there are fantastic. I mean, to get those kind of visuals these days is incredible, really. And it is almost like you've got the theory, now let's go and put it into practice. So it's a really good stage to be at. And of course the KCB, you're going to be doing some drilling there as well this year. So it is an exciting juncture, and all eyes on the mobilisation, I guess, of the drilling.
Well, this is it. I mean, he won't appreciate me saying this. I like to say this to wind him up, but all these geophysical modelling, as far as I'm concerned, it's little better than educated tea leaf reading. We can create these models, all day long, but until we actually get out there and drill these targets, no one actually knows what's down there. But I mean, the work that's gone into this is so thorough. And I mean, this interpretation here, if Hillary is right about this, and I do like to poke fun at him a bit, but if he is right about this, I mean, the potential here is just incredible. The identification of these feeder zones, the distinction between the Karoo gabbros and the Proterozoic, all on what looks like it could be a corridor, which if it proves to be mineralized, could be a mining center in its own right, a global mining center. And of course, these keel formations, which are very, very similar to Norilsk. I mean, we talk a lot about the Norilsk model and the Norilsk analog. And so far, we are pulling together, albeit sort of circumstantial, but evidence that original theory is correct. And if we can now go and demonstrate that with some attractive looking drill core, then it's a very, very bright future for Kavango.
And I'm sure you will, Ben, but I'll just ask you be keeping shareholders updated with regular news flow and pictures as well. They're always nice to see.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there'll be loads of pictures from site. In terms of the news flow around the drill core data, so as you probably remember, Mark, when we first identified the A2 target, we actually identified it, I think it was back in late February, we got the first report, but it wasn't until early April that we actually put the news out, because we went through that process of triple checking the data. We wanted to be absolutely certain as we could before we put that information out into the public domain that, that we had, done everything we could to de-risk it and to confirm the work that had been done. So I know that there'll be a lot of pressure for us to push drill results out. But we're going to be very, very thorough with this and make sure that we report accurately. That's the most important thing for us to do at this stage.
Yeah, good. And will you be planning any site visits yourself?
Well, as soon as I can. I mean, unfortunately, Botswana's on the red list at the moment, so it does make travel over there is very difficult. But the moment I can get down there, I will. I've actually just taken on a senior field geologist who is a Brit, but he lives in Zambia. He's now on the ground helping our exploration manager. So we have actually significantly boosted our local team in anticipation of all of this. I've got absolute confidence in them to deliver everything that we need operationally. And the drill partner that we're working with is Equity Drilling. The guys behind that are extremely well-known drillers right across Africa, really professional outfit. And as you'll see from the photos that we'll produce, I mean, they do run their operations like military operations. So we really are working with the best possible people we can to unlock this region's potential. Okay.
I imagine it would be quite frustrating for you not being able to get out there as easy as perhaps you would like. But
I would be on a plane down there today if I could be. I mean, I'm desperate to get out there. Obviously, I want to meet all of our guys face to face because we've done everything on Zoom so far. Everything's been remote. But no, I want to get down there and get over to Hukunsi and just experience this because it's incredibly exciting. I mean, sort of drilling down to the bottom of these gabbros, it's just, what a great thing to be involved in.
Indeed. What a good time to be involved with the company. You've timed your move well. Congratulations again on becoming CEO. So Ben Turney there, the CEO of Kavango Resources. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.